Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Spotlight Games podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Schweigert, and I'm joined, as always, by my handsome co-host, Cayman. How are you, Cayman?
Doing wonderful, Patrick.
And I'm also joined today, very excited to be joined today.
Wait, is Cayman feeling as handsome as you say he is?
That's a great question.
Today...
I saw that right off. That was deflection?
I mean, he calls me handsome every episode, so it's... I feel like the compliment at this point is starting to fall flat. So
wow, okay,
Patrick.
I hear your feedback, and we will up that next week. That other voice you heard,
sorry,
you might not recognize, or you might recognize. She is the founder of Geek Bomb. You've seen her places like BBC America, Quibi, Nerdist News, SourceFed, Rotten Tomatoes, on red carpets, interviewing celebrities across the globe, just to name a few, folks. Her name is Maude Garrett, and she's Brisbane's own. How are you, Maude?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me on Spotlight Games podcast.
Thank you for being on the Spotlight Games podcast.
Yes, thank you so much, Maude.
For anyone who is listening that might not know who you are, Maude, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, if they don't know, it's too late now.
I agree.
I can't help them. Hello, my name is Maude. I am an Australian host that's been living in LA for about nearly 9 years now. I'm a bit of everything in terms of I'm an entertainment reporter as well as a content creator, streamer. I love video games. I host for a lot of outlets as you've named. So I do a little bit of everything. And then, run the company Geek Bomb on the side just because why not? So I keep very, very busy in that regard, but not enough so that I can't keep watching shows, movies, and playing games.
There you go. With that in mind, some quick housekeeping before we jump into the show proper. Like us, follow us on all the socials, Instagram at Spotlight Games Podcast, Twitter at Spot Games Pod. We have a goal for December, folks. We want to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Right now, we're somewhere in like the 25 range. So we're going to be posting about that on our social media as well. But if you can go to YouTube, search Spotlight Games Podcast, that would be helpful. The goal here is to get to 100 because getting to 100 unlocks a lot of perks with content creation, things that'll help us grow our channel even more. So we'd really love if you would go click it. All it requires is just a quick little click. So
isn't it funny? It's December. It's the month of giving. Maybe you could give a shit and click a follow button and a subscribe button for free.
If Christmas is something that you celebrate, it'll be a Christmas miracle if we reach that goal. So let's do it together.
We didn't talk about swearing.
Totally fine. Fucking do it.
Great.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go off rails here shortly, and it's gonna get pretty spicy. So
my mother, I don't know that my mother listens to most of these because games are a bit above her head, but
sorry.
It's okay. She was at my house last night and she said shit. Might be the first time I've ever heard her say shit in my life. So she's growing up. She's growing up. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. I love you very much.
Louise, look at you.
Look at Louise.
I'm so proud of you.
Final piece of housekeeping for this show. You might have seen on our Instagram and our Twitter this past week, we were doing a giveaway of Resident Evil Village, on PS5. That's where the 5 came from. So we're extending that 1 week. We're going to repost that kind of update. We're going to do a new graphic. It's going to be amazing. Keep your eye out for that. If you have a PS5 or if you don't have a PS5 and you're planning on getting one, keep an eye on our socials for that so you can have a copy when you do get a PS5. And we're going to announce the winners next week on next week's show instead of today on this week's show, as the giveaway had mentioned previously. So that's all the housekeeping out of the way. So let's jump into the show, how we always start, except today we're going to do a little bit of a curveball. Typically, listeners that have been here since day one or last week, we always start our episodes with what we're playing. However, we're going to start today in the spirit of Geek Bomb with what we're playing, watching, and reading, because that's a big thing over Geek Bomb. So, Maude, as our special guest, let's start with you. What have you been playing, watching, and reading?
I like power because it's got the acronym playing, watching, reading, and so it's like, what's your power? And I like that it makes you feel really cool, not that you're staying at home and just consuming content never-endingly on your own. So my power. I'm currently playing a bunch of video games. I tried to play Dragon Age Origins yesterday. The game crashed. twice.
Yeah.
Very disappointingly so. So I'm back on Mass
Yeah.
Effect Legendary, but I've also been playing a lot of Halo, trying to get good at that.
Sure.
And I've also been playing Stardew Valley. So I like balance with that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a game for every mood.
There we go.
And I have a lot of moods. And then watching a lot. I finished Arcane. I've been watching season 1 of The Witcher to prepare for season 2, which is coming out this week. And Wheel of Time, which I've been loving so much so that I'm listening to the first book of Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. I've got the copy right here. It is battered beyond belief.
Oh, wow.
Has seen a day or two. So reading it while watching it, fantastic. If you haven't read the book, Rosamund Pike has actually just recently done the Audible version of that book, and she is so much better than the original person that did it.
Yeah,
and for that alone, I recommend it. Yeah, so that's my power.
I love it. Cayman, what's your power?
My power is reading minds.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That was like a really shitty pun. I'm sorry, guys. I'm
such
resigning. I'm resigning my position as co-host of the Spotlight Games podcast.
Well, you've been
now after that
rehired,
one.
effective immediately.
Beautiful, because I have been playing Psychonauts 2. And I have to say, Psychonauts 2, I'm not finished quite yet. I'm on the last brain, or at least it appears to be, because they kind of give you a little bit of like a block. And I have to say, it might potentially be my game of the year, but I haven't finished it yet. So holding a little bit of reservations. I'm going to, keep expectations in check, but potentially could be. I'm excited to talk about that next week as well. As for my watching, I have restarted watching the Berserk series. It's an anime. It's based off a manga that's over 30 years old. It's a horror manga. It's an absolutely incredible series. Just finished watching the Golden Egg arc, which is like the beginning movies, and then now HBO Max has the TV series now, so you can watch it there. Having a great time. I've also been keeping up with my trash cinema, which is my go-to nightly watch, is to watch something from the 70s, 80s, or early 90s that's terrible. So I've been enjoying that. As for reading, I too have used Audible. For me though, instead of Wheel of Time, I've actually been listening to Little Heaven by Nick Cutter, which if you're a horror literature fan, if you're a fan of Stephen King specifically, Nick Cutter is his prodigy. Like he is the new up and coming Stephen King. He's an incredible author. Little Heaven is like his version of The Stand. It's very long, but it's very enjoyable. Patrick, what about you?
That's a lot of horror.
That is a lot. Something, Maude, that you definitely don't know about Cayman is he's a big horror boy. Always watching trash horror movies. He's always trying to get me to watch trash horror movies. That is his secret. Not so secret, actually. Love of his life is the horror. Everything
very
horror
vocal about it. Yeah,
except video games. Actually, you're not a big fan of horror video games.
No, I'm a little baby when it comes to horror video games, and they scare me too much. And so I like to keep my mediums as books and
more of a voyeur, not immersive.
I can't. It's something about the idea of like having control of the character, especially games that like they remove any agency from you. Something like Outlast, like just absolutely no, fuck that shit. I'm out. Yeah, deuces. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, I get that. My power. I just finished Life is Strange: True Colors.
Is it good?
Maude, it is so lovely. I didn't play the second one, but the games aren't connected in any way other than they have like a general, like you have a power in some way in each of them. But I was so pleasantly surprised with this video game. What I was telling Cayman pre-show is it very much leans into it's very much a narrative game. Like there's not much gameplay element to it. There's a little bit. There's like investigative work and walking around the town and trying to find clues and that kind of thing. But it's very much you're there for the story. You're not there for gameplay, which is totally fine by me. Those are typically games that I prefer. But like the voice acting is really great. The only kind of criticism that I have of it is I played it a second time to get like the other types of story that you can get, the other choices that you can make, as it were. And it kind of ended up being that all choices end up leading to the same path, kind of. There are a few different endings, but they are all pretty samey. And there are things throughout that will change pretty drastically, but ultimately it always takes you kind of to the same place. But it takes you to a good, like, it's a place that I was really satisfied with. So it's not like, at least I liked the ending a lot, especially the one that I got the first time. But definitely recommend it. Like if you like those kinds of games, like Telltale, Life is Strange, any of those kinds of games, this highly recommend it. It's definitely probably in my top 3 for this year so far. I forget her name, but I meant to look this up before we started and I forgot. The girl who plays Alex, the main character, puts in a really great performance. I was really pleased with her in this. And then what I've been watching, I am not finished with, but I watched Arcane. Oh wait, actually, one second. To go back
Erica Mori.
Thank you, Eric Mori. To go back to Life is Strange for just a moment. Since I'm not going to be doing a full review, I do at least want to say that I give this game 5 shovels, as you can see on the screen, because I dig this game quite a lot.
You're also digging my grave right now by putting those on screen.
Stop it. Okay, whoops, wrong one.
Woo.
Here we go. There we go. Okay. I need to delete those other banners. Okay, so what I've been watching, Arcane on Netflix. I'm like 6 episodes in. Talked a little bit about it last week. It is so good. Like, I am blown away by this show. I have never played League of Legends. I'm not a PC guy, so I don't know shit about League of Legends. I did some like investigative work. There's a point in the show, I won't spoil anything, but there's a time jump. And the time jump happened, and I was like, okay, I want to try to see if there are some things that I need to understand with League of Legends, and there wasn't. But I learned that most of the characters of the show are, I guess, playable characters in League of Legends. It is, like, I haven't finished it, but it is one of the most impressive, not just video game adaptations, just like, from what I understand of the League of Legends story, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of it. And the story that they're telling is so good. Like, I'm so drawn in, and like I want to know everything about League of Legends now, which apparently there's not a ton. But yeah, highly recommend Arcane if you've not been watching that. And then my weekly.
So my friends, a couple of my friends are voice actors in that. And apparently, because the animation is so wonderful and unique, it's a French studio, and it takes something like 3 days for every second of animation.
They're
45-50-minute episodes, and there's 9 of them. So
have you seen? There's a movie that came out a few years ago. It's a documentary on Vincent van Gogh called Loving Vincent.
Oh no!
And it's a similar scenario, except it was like 1,000 different artists, and they painted each individual frame by hand in the same art style as Vincent van Gogh. If you haven't seen it, it is absolutely astounding. Just visually to look at. But I want to say it was like somewhere near like 250 or 500,000 paintings like went into the movie. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, I remember that sounds like one that you want to watch like on the best possible screen, like 4K, Ultra HD, whatever. Yeah, I will check that out. And then the other 2 things I've been watching, the weekly, Succession every Sunday, which I'm just so impressed by that show all the time. Do either of you watch Succession?
Yes.
No, so good.
I think I'm one off. I haven't watched the most recent, but
okay.
It's so. If you want an anxiety attack, just watch it.
Yeah. Especially, not a single spoiler, because there are things that happen in this. You might have already been spoiled. There have been spoils all over the place on the internet. But speaking of anxiety attack, this episode, the newest one, definitely has probably the most anxiety-inducing thing a show has ever done to me in my life.
I feel like I have enough anxiety attacks in real life. Like, watching a show to induce one seems like literal torture.
Yes,
but the writing and the acting is so good.
You don't like anyone. You don't like any of them. And if you do like them, you're a bad person.
Right. My wife Rose has tried watching it a couple times, and she's like, I can't root for them, and it's really hard for me to watch a show you can't root for. I was like, I understand. I just love watching the mess that they all make, and
also,
it's just super
you have
entertaining.
to do the piano solo at the title, the intro.
Correct. Yes. Have you ever seen? There's a video. A man who lives in LA. His name is I always get his last name wrong. Demi Adejuyigbe, I think is. He did a vocal rendition of the opening, like he put lyrics to it.
Whoa.
It's very funny. He's a writer on a lot of like late night shows, like Amber Ruffin and those kinds of shows. But anyway, and then Dexter New Blood, the new reboot of Dexter, I've been watching, and I've actually really been enjoying that. If either of you watched Dexter,
I
fan
own
so far.
every season, which shouldn't be a shock if you can see the screen, which for audio listeners, at this point, if you're an audio listener, you should know by now that I have a movie collection in the thousands.
There's a
And
wall of
so-
it behind you.
Oh, it just, don't worry, it wraps around.
His whole apartment, all the walls are just movies. He lives in a box, and the movies are his walls.
You live in the red box. The
Yeah,
DVD.
I live inside of a red box. Yes,
He is the founder of Redbox. He just didn't
my name
sell.
is actually Cayman Redbox.
And then I'm not a huge reader. I'm going to start doing more audiobooks like you both do. I used to listen to audiobooks a lot at my old job when I could not focus on my work, but my current job, I can't do that anymore. And I'm just not a big like lay in bed reader, but I've been reading the Invincible Compendium after that show came out last year. I'm on the last one, and that's really good. I've been kind of slowly working through that. And then a friend of mine just gave me a copy of The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman with high recommendations. I've read like 3 pages. So I'm kind of cheating by saying I'm reading it because I literally just started it, but I've been told it's one of his best. So
yeah, right. Okay.
See, I feel like this was like a perfect opportunity for me to lie and say that I was reading something like studious instead of what I'm
War and
actually
we would have
reading.
Again.
we would have seen through the lie, Cayman.
Yeah, it would have been sniffed out fast.
Yeah. Well, that's my power. That's all of our powers, in fact. Why don't you this week write into the show, mail at spotlightgames.net, or DM us on Twitter or Instagram and share with us your power. We'd love to hear it. And then while you're at it, go follow Geek Bomb, which we'll talk more about at the end of the show, but go follow Geek Bomb so you can be a part of that community and talk about your power there.
Yay.
I want to transition to the main topic of this show, which is all about our lovely guest Maude, who has joined us.
And then there's Maude.
And then there's Maude. I would love to. I've looked all over the internet. I've looked at Wikipedia. I've looked at IMDb. I've looked at things. I've looked at places. I've listened to interviews and podcasts. And
Did you call my mom?
I called your mom, and she very lovely person.
She's lovely.
I have learned a lot about you, a lot more about you in the last couple of days. But I think your career is fascinating. I think there's a lot that you've done that's really impactful and important, and I want to talk about it.
Sure.
So let's start with.
I'm just so used to not being on this end of interviews.
Well, here you are.
So first question that we're going to start off with is, how does it feel having a Wikipedia page just for you?
That's a great place to start.
You know what? I think the weirdest part about it is that I don't know how it happened, and I don't know who started it.
This is actually an unofficial question. Patrick's leading this whole thing, but I just wanted to swoop in real quick and just say, hey, look, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with an actual famous person before, or at least someone that has a Wikipedia page. So that's pretty special.
That bad boy is
10
years old too.
It's how many years old?
Over 10.
Oh, shit.
There you
Could
go.
even be 15.
That's almost as old as you came in.
Almost, yes.
I can go make you a Wikipedia page, Cayman. It probably will be taken down within 30 seconds, but I'll try to give you that honor today. So I want to start from the beginning. Obviously, you were born in Australia.
I was.
And you
Still
moved
got the
to LA.
accent.
Still got the accent. Haven't lost it. Lost it. So you were born in the North Territory. Do we say the North Territory or just North Territory?
Northern
Territory.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Okay. No one really heard of it.
I had. I remember geography. At what point in your life did you know you wanted to become a host?
That's a great question because I didn't really. Growing up in Brisbane, I went to the kind of school where it was like you could either be a scientist or a doctor or a lawyer, and that's kind of it. Okay. And so I, of course, chose all the arts subjects and didn't do well in school because those subjects weren't weighted as heavily as like academic subjects. So I went to the wrong school, basically. And I thought my only option was to be an actor. But then it took a little too long to realize that the part of acting that didn't resonate with me was that I had to become someone else. And I was like, why would I want to do that when I like being me? And then I was like, that's a host. And I was like, oh, good. So when that happened, I kind of hit the ground running and I finally felt like, I'd found my place for the first time, but I just didn't know it was a possibility.
Sure. And so that, when was that? How old were you then?
17, 18. 17.
Okay. So then from there, what was your first step to start becoming a host?
I mean, MTV kind of does it a lot in America, like they'll hold that nationwide search for a new music presenter. I did that.
Got it. Okay.
And there's like thousands of people around Australia that auditioned for this It's called Channel V in Australia, and it was like a fresh meat competition to try and find new talent. I name dropped my uncle, who is in one of Australia's most prolific bands, and that was kind of like my in. But that was the last time I ever sort of mentioned him again. He got my foot in the door for sure.
Do you mind if I ask what band that is?
It's a band called Midnight Oil. They have a song called Beds Are Burning. They came out like they were huge in the mid to late 80s.
I guarantee my father knows exactly who they are. I guarantee it.
Their demographics a lot older, that's for sure.
Sure.
And they've been kicking for a while.
So you went to an audition, but what they didn't realize is it was a audition because you had the job.
All right, I quit again. Second time I quit this episode.
We need a pun counter here.
Hey, we can try.
Put those shovels back up on the screen because I give that 1 shovel out of 5.
Come on. That's at the very least.
You gotta dig your way out of it. That was a 4 shoveler.
Thank you. I won't say it was a 5. According to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
You started. But you just said MTV. According to Wikipedia, I think it said Nickelodeon, but you just said MTV. That was.
It was like MTV. It was we had 2 music channels. One actually played music, and it wasn't MTV. It was Channel V. Yeah, that was back in. Maybe I won't say.
Whatever you want to share.
It's back in 2005.
A great year.
I was going through my emo phase. It was a great year.
Hey, don't worry. In 2005, I was going through my emo phase as well.
So good.
I don't know if I'd go that far. At least for my emo phase. Mine was sad.
I still miss it.
So you're at Channel V. Great name, by the way. Channel V. What a mysterious sounding channel. How long were you on screen until you started making the transition into radio?
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't win the competition. I came 3rd.
Okay.
No, they didn't want me. Dumbest thing they ever did. But I ended up getting a job with Nickelodeon, which was in the same sort of like cable network. The timing of it was next level. Like when people say, how do I get in the industry? I'm telling you, like I had to be in a particular city that I did not live in on a particular day. And I just happened to be there. Like it's stuff like that where it would just all fell into place. I wasn't the best person for the job. I didn't do well in my audition. And I remember like they would give you these instructions for this. My first show was a kid's Survivor without the brutality of eliminating people. But I had to talk about these challenges and I really couldn't do it. But the reason why I got the job was because I was able to talk to kids without talking down to them. And that's the only reason why I got the job. And that's something that you can or you can't do, or you do or you don't do. So again, it was like a perfect storm to land this job. But I think because I realized that this is what I wanted to do, I developed a tenacity and wanted to stay in it. So I did television for about 3 years, moved into radio 2 years after that. And then that's what got me over to LA. Yeah, doing a radio show. Yeah.
So at what point, was there a point in which you knew, like, so obviously you're on TV, you're hosting Survivor Extreme for children.
Yes.
Is there a point in which you know that like, I want like the TV part is what I want to do? Or was it just, I want to do whatever type of hosting I can get my foot in and then kind of figure out what I want to do most from there? Because obviously going from TV as your first job to now being, junkets, red carpets, content creation, there's a long journey to go through, but it's quite different than being on television. So like like kind of walk me through that.
It's sort of exploring traditional media, and traditional media is still the more prolific sort of medium out there, the more respected medium. I think it's very much changed in America, especially with the digital market going so big. But for me, like I was only hired to be a host, and I wanted to write, I wanted to produce, I wanted to do so much more. And it was basically like, sit there until we tell you to do the thing that you're supposed to do. And so because I was so hungry to learn, I think it was easier to start. Like I wanted to get into voiceovers big time because that was a part of my job that I really liked. I wanted to produce segments. I wanted to, the celebrity interviews was a big part of that. I remember interviewing Cameron Diaz and she taught me how to burp on cue. So it was like that side of it I really, really liked. And so trying to find jobs that was able to let me be a little bit more hands-on, I felt was better. And
Yeah,
that's actually the advice that I would give. Don't just do one thing. You've got to be able to do it all.
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Because yeah, the creative part definitely speaks to me. I think as I, in previous discussions we've had, Maude, my background being in the arts, being in acting, and there's a lot of toxicity, not to suggest there's not toxicity in gaming. It's a lot worse in gaming in a way, but within the structure of the business itself, not the communities, but the business itself, there's a lot of that. And a lot of the time kind of taking the creativity out of it is just not as enjoyable. And I see that in content creating and hosting that way is being the one in control. There's definitely like a spark there that I didn't realize existed until we started doing this.
And
so that
ownership
tracks
over it too.
Yeah, for sure. So had you always felt like a writer at heart, like, or was just writing and the creative side something that you just had interest in?
I actually hate writing. If I was
Okay.
standing in front of the Bogart, like from Harry Potter, a blank page would come out with expectation to fill it with words. I was like, no. Can I write? Yes. Have I had to write? Yes. When I was at SourceFed for about 15 months, I had to write 2 to 3 scripts per day.
Wow.
So getting that, but it's a great skill set to have. There's a reason why I prefer hosting. I would rather go in and just say it instead of write it.
Yeah, that tracks. I have a follow-up question about your so you in the story of your life that we are going through. You mentioned moving from Australia to LA. According to the internet, the grand capital I internet, you founded Geek Bomb in Australia.
Yeah.
In 2012, right? So talk me through that, like the founding of Geek Bomb.
Well, because the whole entertainment space in Australia is so small. I'm talking there is maybe a handful of people that have a stable place within that. And this is still a conversation I have. What is it, 2021? I had a conversation with my Australian agent about maybe coming home. What does that look like? What is the scope of hosting in Australia? And she said, the problem with you, Maude, is that you specialize in entertainment. I was like, I know, movies, TV, digital media, video games, social content. There's so much celebrity, you name it, red carpets. And she goes, I know, it's just so niche. So that is just like the biggest indicator that Australia is so small that back in 2009, when I was transitioning out of kids television and then going into radio, she said, you just have to stop talking about Star Wars. Because the more you talk about Star Wars and video games and the things you actually love, it will cost you work. And with so few jobs out there, if there was, say, a need for a reporter for Fashion Week, I've basically typecast myself to not fall under that umbrella. So you have to be so vague and so malleable that having any kind of interest or niche does you a disservice. So I actually started Geek Bomb to be able to blog under a pseudonym so I could review all the video games that I was playing on my Xbox 360, so I could talk about all these vampire books that I was reading at the time and not be typecast.
That's incredible.
And so that's kind of how that happened, and then it took off.
It's interesting to me that you say that, because like back in the 70s or 70s, early 80s, there was a huge like wave of Aussie-ploitation films that was specifically just trash movies that were just coming out of Australia because it was so cheap to film there. So you had things like The Birdcage, and a lot of these old films. And honestly, Tarantino specifically talks a lot about how those films influenced his today. Things like Kill Bill and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of those are the way that his directorial style in those films are based off of the Aussie-ploitation grindhouse of that era. So it is interesting that it seems like there might have been like a wave where it just kind of like the entertainment industry just kind of died off in terms of that. That's wild to me.
We're just such a smaller market. It's just so comparable. So, you know, when it was around 2009, I was watching Attack of the Show and X Play, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a woman talking about video games. It's possible. And so when I was able to, I got an offer to take over an already sort of very popular show, which was syndicated around Australia, but recorded in America. And it was like getting all of Hollywood's access to give back to Australia. When I was offered that role, I jumped at it because I think LA just showed so much more potential and possibility for me.
Is that the Hot Hits Live in LA?
It is. The Hot Hits
I did some
Live.
research.
Yes, you did.
Was it all from Wikipedia though?
One side. Trust
Who's
me.
asking? Who's asking?
Me, specifically me.
I'm
trying to call you out. I'm trying to call you out in front of Maude. Trying to get some brownie points over here. I did no research.
We're accepting no further questions at this time, Cayman. Me personally. Is it? I'm just curious. Is it still like that today in Australia? Like, is the market still super small like that?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So that conversation about but you just, you're too niche with entertainment. That was a conversation that took place months ago. And they said, if you want to come back to Australia, you have to do a celebrity reality TV show.
I'm losing my mind.
There's no other way. And I was like, don't you think that with all of my digital media kind of domination and exploration and accreditation, I could bring that to Australia and start expanding it? No, celebrity reality TV. And it's either I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, where you will eat bull scrotum whilst jumping or tight roping across alligator infested waters, or it's like a celebrity apprentice. I was even asked to be the Bachelorette, except they said that I was too old and I was probably going to be really jaded and hate men.
Oh my God.
I had a conversation with producers though. That was
that. Funny. So that has nothing to do with this show, but me, my wife, and not Cayman, some of our close friends are big Bachelor fans. Bachelor Nation. Shout out to Bachelor Nation if you're listening.
I never watched it. I didn't know about it.
I'm obsessed that they wanted you to be the Bachelorette.
I'm a little sad that you didn't take them up on the offer.
You know what it is? I really had to sit with it. And I was like, I think it would be really refreshing because I'm super authentic.
Sure.
The problem is when you put yourself out there like that, you essentially invite people into the very private intricacies of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And as a default, I hate that. I do not, I keep a lot of things to myself. I do not talk about my relationships. So to kind of like offer that up for the taking was really kind of disregarding my integrity.
Sure. Yeah, it actually, go ahead, Cayman.
Okay, I just kind of want to. I'm just gonna pitch you real quick. Just think of me as a producer, Maude. I'm gonna pitch you real quick. The Bachelorette meets Fear Factor.
I hate it.
Where just that they have to. All these guys have to cross a tightrope over alligators eating bull scrotum to win your heart.
Okay, that's better.
See,
but do I have to kiss them after they've eaten bull scrotum?
You can give them instead of getting a rose at the end of the episode, you get a toothbrush and toothpaste.
I like it. That's actually
Solve
not
the
bad,
conundrum.
Have you thought about being a reality TV producer?
I should be. I think it's my calling.
Here's the thing. In Bachelor in Paradise, all those shows, like once a year or once a season, there's always like one date or a group date or challenge date where they'll do bullshit like that. And it's always so gross. Like they'll do these ones where it's like you're on a scavenger hunt. So they're also running around and then they're eating bull scrotum. And it's just like, we turned this show off, or we turned Fear Factor off 15 years ago. Let's keep it to 15 years ago. To that last point, though, in terms of not one of the main reasons not wanting to do The Bachelor is because it would open up that part of your life in terms of everyone wanting to get every little piece of information about your personal life.
Not only wanting to take that, but also giving their opinion. And the fact that you decided to be in that position, you opted to be a part of reality TV, you basically sign that away. And I've got a lot of friends that have done reality TV, and reading the comments of these people that are so opinionated about their life. And honestly, the default of an audience is them waiting for you to fuck up.
Yeah, 100%.
And I just think that, like, having to be inundated with that every day, not worth it.
That point actually specifically is a great segue to this question, which is, because this is also very prevalent in games, specifically with how toxic communities can be in games, but that kind of opening up yourself to that kind of a toxic community. I'm curious if you're willing. This is a question we can absolutely skip. What it's like being a woman, having to deal with all that bullshit, an executive in this industry with community. I mean, your community is great. I've been a part of
My
it for a little bit
community is
now.
great.
Your community is great. Like I've not seen a single negative word there, which is awesome. But you know more than anybody that it's not always your community that's the one talking to you.
Yeah.
And so what has that been like in your
Awful.
growth from coming here from Australia and then moving up in the world where you're at now? I'm sure that's been one of the bigger challenges that you faced.
It's interesting because I, having started in television, had very, very thick skin with it all. And I've noticed that sort of like prolonged exposure is actually starting to chip away a little bit more each time. Like
Yeah.
I've heard everything. Like I noticed that any video that I was in, and this one might not be exempt either, but every single video that I was in, the comments about the men in the video would be what they were saying. The comments about me would be how I said it, how I sounded, or how I looked. So that every single time, like, so I have to pass a test, which is basically subconscious bias of am I not too fill in the blank, too loud, too soft, too opinionated, too pushover, like, and it's just this dance to try and get someone to hear what I have to say. In saying that as well, I am in a space, the gaming space and the nerd culture space, where one of two things will usually happen. Number one, I will get put up on this worship obsession pedestal because someone who looks like me likes the thing that they like, and then it becomes parasocial, very borderline inappropriate, but this sort of like, I will follow you to the ends of the earth. And it's like, okay, now I have to put boundaries in place.
Right.
The other side of that, which is actually worse, is I look like the girl that bullied them in high school for liking this stuff. So how dare I now try to get into their world and like the thing that they were bullied for liking, and therefore must destroy me. So that's fun as well.
Fuck
so
that.
That's kind of like my space. So yeah, I get a lot of objectification comments. Like I'm trying to start like a support group for women in the content space where it's like, you know, and already we've had some of my friends jump on a call just to talk about how horrific this has been, because there's no manual on how to cope with it. There's no, like, it's all happening so fast that there's no real protocol. I'm noticing the negative reactions and effects that it's had on me. If I'm constantly shown the worst part of men, I come to expect the worst part of men. And that's not fair. And I've got to be better about it. But this is some of the long-term effects of being in the space.
Sorry, go ahead, Gaiman.
I'm first and foremost, I'm sorry. Like I know that you probably get that a lot from people that are like, I'm sorry that you have to deal with these situations as a man. And my fiance, she's a teacher. And it's one of those things where she kind of deals with certain situations where you're dealing with kids in classrooms too, and these are children, obviously not adults. And I think that that's the problem is like a lot of kids will just be like, no, because I'm a guy, I know more than, my teachers. And then you have situations like these kids don't grow out of that.
Yeah.
Like they need to be trained better. And for you to have to go through that, one, I'm sorry that that's ever happened to you. That's just the fucking worst. And hearing, especially the last one, because obviously we don't, this is not something we have to go through on a day-to-day basis. So we don't see that. So thank you for sharing that with us too.
That's all right.
Because these topics, especially this one, is not an easy topic to broach, I don't think. And so for you to be able to share that, like your experiences with that too, like just thank you for that. That's
okay.
It helps broaden our horizons.
When you do share that, it's like if you make someone uncomfortable by just sharing that, then like there's like another sort of motivation for some dudes to then want to try and destroy me even more because I'm trying to express awareness. It's like a lot of the time it's a lose-lose. But thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I obviously echo what Cayman says, but one of the reasons I want to ask is obviously we're very small. We're growing, we're building this space and we're building this community, and we're also obviously two white dudes. And last week we had a friend of ours, Michael Santiago. This week you're on the show. One of my main goals with Spotlight Games is bringing on people who don't look like me and aren't the same as me, because as a white dude, opportunities will come to me easier than other people. And so I want to be aware of what, and I'm sure eventually there will be hate toward me, but like, it's not going to be anywhere near, especially what women have to go through. But I'm curious. Yeah. I thank you for sharing that. Cause I want to be aware of kind of what it's like dealing with that as we move forward and build our own community, because obviously that shit's never going to fly here.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, like, one of the communities I follow a lot too, Kind of Funny. I don't know if you are friends with any of them. Yeah. You need to be on Kind of Funny. We need to talk to Greg about that. They also have a very positive community, but at a certain point, when you get to a certain size, it's hard to stay only positive, because then people start coming in and being negative. But yeah, so I don't really have a great segue from that question. It was just something that I wanted to ask about. Any final thoughts on that one before we move on?
I think, the fact that you're saying that you have a particular perspective, and it's like, what we all need to know is that we all know our own perspective so well, but the cure to ignorance is to learn and to ask questions. And so I think having like diversified voices and guests, and like, I mean, I learned something about my own country from Cayman with this film influx that took place. I didn't even know that, so like everyone has something so unique to offer. And I think the most important part of that is a willingness to learn. And the way that you have a willingness to learn is to listen. And I think a lot of people struggle with listening because they're so excited to share their perspective. But the thing is, with, being a white man, your perspective is the majority.
Yeah.
But even though Cayman, I learned from you. Like, I learned from you. It's a unique.
Look, I'm the first to admit that I'm wrong pretty much 99% of the time.
At least once an episode.
At least once an episode, I am wrong. With that being said, I try to strive to learn something new from the people around me every day.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Each person, their experiences are insular. And if you block yourself off and you just live in your own, echo chamber, then you're not growing as an individual. And that's not just gaming or nerd culture. That's just, the world round. And so I think that especially having people like yourself who are making strides to make the world a better place, and by being vocal about that, is incredible. And that's something I don't think enough people do. And so I commend you, even though I think my opinion matters very little on this topic. I commend you for taking the step and going forward and being vocal about those things, because we won't be able to learn. No one will be able to learn if people don't stand up and say, this is happening.
Well, there's actually another part to this as well, which I kind of just had a shower thought, which is the big point of all of this is this ignorance. It's like, I don't know. And if like to the cure of ignorance is learning. But at the same time, if someone confesses ignorance and they show a willingness to learn, our job as well is to not chastise the person for not knowing the thing, and because the world is evolving so fast, like, I came in as an Australian trying to learn about America's history. And I had to learn as an adult about something that, this entire country grew up learning. And for me, it's like I had to ask questions. But if there was ever sort of like pushback because I didn't know, that's so like, how am I supposed to know everyone's perspective? I know mine, and I need to learn other people's. So I think the key here is, if someone displays a willingness to learn, that is the most important person, I think, in our existence today.
Yeah, I agree. Because I thought of too, another reason I wanted to ask that is, with our community so far, it's mostly our friends, mine and Cayman's friends. And some of our friends are big in games. Like, we have 5 or 6 people that wrote in with what they're going to be playing over the holidays, but a lot of our audience is not familiar with games as much as we are. So everything you shared, they probably expected in some way because you're a woman and the world fucking blows, but they might not know that about the gaming nerd space, specifically how toxic it can be and how many barriers men in our space put up and that kind of thing in comment sections and all that shit. So thank you for sharing. Why don't we actually, I actually wanted to ask you about one more thing career-wise.
Yeah.
There's something that you're working on now, which is I think you have an episode this Friday, which I'm sure you'll plug later when you plug everything that you're working on. The half-hour happy hour.
Yes. HHHH.
HHHH. 4H. Is that because that's not a Geek Bomb product, right? How do you go about as a host in this industry getting those kinds of jobs? Is it a manager? Is it an agent? Is it like you audition for those? Like what is that like?
The key to working in LA, it's not who knows you. I mean, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So in that instance, the half-hour happy hour has been going on for about 6 years. Hosted by Alex Albrecht, who's very OG YouTube digital media content in the gaming space. He did, this I should know this off by heart. He did the 3 R's. He did like one of the first sort of gaming shows on YouTube back in like 2005 kind of deal. So he's very much an OG-er. And then Alison Hayslip, again, who's very OG in the gaming space, she did the feed for Attack of the Show. And then they looped in their friend Tom Krajewski, who's a writer, and he was just supposed to do tech, and then he became a big integral part of the show. But Alex ended up getting a job with what was the streaming platform that starts with C? Not Cheddar.
I want to say Chibi, but that's just I'm thinking of Quibi.
There's Cineplex.
No, I can't believe I don't know this. I was on it for ages. Streaming platform. Starts with C?
Your guess is as good as mine at this point.
Nah, I got nothing. Someone will tell me in the comments maybe. But he did that full time. And so Alison, who she and I have been friends since 2013, she was like, listen, we need someone to replace Alex. It's only you. So please take it. Please join. So that's how that happened.
Nice.
That's
incredible. Cool. Yeah, I've not listened to it personally, but I plan on listening to this week's Drunksmith. Great.
Yes, we get collectively more and more drunk as we go along.
Yeah, that's great. We at some point, because right now we're just doing pre-recorded podcasts. At some point, we're going to start streaming, mostly when we have better tech that can actually support live streaming. But because is this a live stream show with Drunksmiths?
Yeah. But I use this platform. I told you about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to live switch as well.
Perfect. Yeah, what I need is a better computer because I'm using my work computer. Don't tell my boss. And I mean, I'm not. It's not like I wouldn't get in trouble for it, but it's just there are limitations with this computer, and I need to get one that's not my work computer. Anyway, enough behind the scenes bullshit. Let's transition a little bit into the Game Awards, which is a show that's going to be happening this week, Thursday, happening today. If you're listening today, as this, we're recording Wednesday. Yesterday,
it is. So it is Thursday.
It is Thursday. It is today, Thursday, the 9th,
Thursday.
in LA, hosted by Jeff Keighley.
Jeff Keighley.
Will you be attending,
Maude? I
Maude?
don't know if you know that.
No, I wasn't invited.
Jeff, I know you're listening, Jeff.
And neither was my very, very dear friend in the space, Trisha Hirschberger. So her and I are actually going to cover the Game Awards.
Nice.
Drunk. Pretending that we were invited, but streaming at her house. And we're going to actually get all glammed up as if we were invited.
Good.
So
Stick it to him.
That.
Yeah, Jeff, I know you're listening. You're one of the first listeners of our podcast. I know you know my name and Cayman's name. Where's Maude's invitation?
Yeah,
Shuhei's
got to be in there somewhere. He can pull some strings, right? He listens.
Tantrum. Got it all out though, so it's okay.
Yeah. Hey, actually, I know I just said this is a bad host decision of me, but I'm curious. West Side Story. You saw West Side Story last night. Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, last night. I am.
Right, 2 nights ago.
Yep.
What did you think?
So I've never seen West Side Story before.
Really?
I didn't know that it was a tragedy or a Romeo and Juliet take. I went in completely blind, but I took one of my dear friends who is, a musical theater sort of major who's lived and breathed this, and kind of like going through her experience as well. It's very good. Ansel Elgort, not only is he actually an incredible actor, but dude can sing.
Can
he's
he
not
sing?
like musical theater. He is like full on 50s crooner. His voice
Really?
He
is
does Rocket Man as
velvet.
well. So
Sorry?
yeah, so he does Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic.
No,
He
that's
wasn't the
Taron
actor in
Egerton.
that.
That's Taron
Ansel-
Egerton.
Oh fuck! Are they the exact same person? They just look the same, and I'm an idiot.
Mhm.
See, you know what? Hey, you know what? I just want to go.
The idiot part.
You were wrong. You did it.
I was right. Look, I told you at least once an episode I'm gonna be wrong about something. So
There
this
it
is
is.
my
Oh
word. Put
my
up the
God.
shovels, guys. Put up the shovels. It's time.
We
Five
give
out of
Cayman
five.
one shovel. Boo.
Dig your way out of that.
No, I can't anymore. I quit again. Third time quitting on this one episode.
Well, you've been rehired.
fantastic.
I'm really pleased to hear that he sounds good, because very first musical I did, if you don't count 5th grade, when I played the role of Elvis, which is a Christmas show where Elvis was an elf. If you don't count that, the first musical I did was West Side Story. We're not going to count that. So West Side Story, I love the show, and I'm excited to see the movie. But my biggest concern has been Ansel Elgort singing.
No,
because he hasn't sung at all in the promo footage, like no trailers. He's always just walking around being handsome as Tony. So I'm like, that's not a good sign. They should be showing me what he sounds like.
That's a secret that they want. Okay, when he first does his number, you go like the Jurassic Park, take the glasses off slowly kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, wait, we can both do it at the same time.
There you go. It was.
I look way better with glasses.
I just need a little bit more of a down pull. There's an art that Patrick's got it. That's
okay, yeah, sorry. I'm just doing this
the
the old man sneer who sits on his porch and just kind of waves his stick at people who walk by.
Cayman, you might not know West Side Story, directed by Steven Spielberg, who is a very famous director. You might not know.
He was there last night.
Stop.
2 nights ago. Yeah, he came out and he did like a 15-minute speech, like really, and telling the story of how it came about. Introducing not only prolific members of the crew, but also the cast. Stephen Sondheim,
Sondheim,
like obviously doing a very heartfelt
tribute.
Yeah, it was incredible. But like, it's that kind of thing where a couple of times Steven Spielberg's directed something. The only other example I really have is like Ready Player One, where it's like, how is this your wheelhouse? Why are you doing this? But hearing him explain sort of how long he's wanted to do this and how he was very trepidatious. Is that a word?
Trepidatious is a word.
It is indeed a word. Yes.
Yes. No shovels for me.
Well, 5 shovels for you.
Oh yay! I learned like trying to explore this genre, but he does such a good job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean the first trailer, like just seeing how he shot it, I was already in. Because there are a lot of like musical movies and musical adaptations that, coming from a musical theater background, I'm like, that's dog shit. And this one, I've just the directorial style looked very appeasing to me.
Usually they won't know how to. I mean, Chicago did a really good job, but more often than not, if it's like a musical being put into a movie, it tries to emulate a stage show a little bit too much. Or it totally disregards the authenticity of it being musical theater, and they take their own liberty. Cats, and so So in this particular instance, he actually really seamlessly blends both of them. So it feels like stage direction on this cool set, and you're an audience member watching it, but it also really does feel like a big movie, and it captures that essence of it all. It is really, really well done.
So
go ahead, Cayman.
Sorry, I'm going to interject real quick. This question is specifically for Maude. The last movie I was privy enough to see in theaters was Cats.
That was the last one.
That was the last one. So my question to you is, as an entertainment person, I have 2 options on the table. Do I go see the new Resident Evil live action film, or do I go see West Side Story? I'm leaning Resident Evil.
No.
Have you seen the Resident Evil film?
No, and I never have to.
That's fair. Okay.
I don't think one of them has rated over 55%.
Yeah, probably not.
This is
Can I
going to be
just say that?
Academy
dead to
Award
rights, guys.
nominated, at least.
Can
Yeah,
I
that
just
makes
say
sense.
though that some of the best films of all time, they come in at that Rotten Tomato score of about 20.
Okay, you know what,
Anything by
Cayman? I accept your
Anything by Nicolas
resignation.
Cage.
I accept your
Someone's got to
resignation.
champion bad stuff, you know?
You're right.
Look,
I have
Nicolas
one.
Cage makes great films, guys. I'm just saying.
He sometimes.
Sometimes.
I have one final West Side Story question, and then we can get back on topic.
Yes.
Baby John, the character Jet, did he make a big impact in the film? That's the role I played, Baby John. He was the youngest of the Jets.
He's in it. He gets is there a spoiler? He gets a nail stabbed through his earlobe.
Oh, I don't think that happened to me in 10th grade.
Then
It can today if you keep
Spielberg making strong choices.
He has a role big enough for me who's never had anything to do with West Side Story. Know who you're talking about.
Yes, the legacy of Baby John lives on. Okay, back to video games. Game Awards.
Yes.
So we've already discussed that Jeff Keighley is dead to all three of us for not inviting Maude to go.
Yes.
But do we have any sort of
slow year for games? And I understand why. We had a pandemic in 2020, but I definitely usually when it's a Game Awards, it's like it could be a toss between 5 really fantastic A+, 10 out of 10 games. This year I'm like, I've played a couple of them.
Yeah, I feel like this year, there have been quite a lot that I've liked, but none of them are, except maybe Deathloop. I did really love Deathloop, but even that, it's. Go ahead.
It was a little hot. I streamed it quite a few times.
Sure.
I loved the story. I thought it was really unique. I don't agree with shooters that make you be stealth, because that is not how I am. Rampage only.
Yeah.
And I was not rewarded for it.
That's fair.
That's fair. So I actually had to pause Deathloop to play Psychonauts because I got so worn out by being just to go from point A to point B, because you can't, like you said, you can't rampage through. And I like to feel like a superhero when I play shooters, especially. I want to feel like John Rambo. I want to go in guns blazing. And that game is just it takes so long to get because you have to be so methodical.
Yes.
And I'm like, it just can't.
First Life, recon mission. You have to scope. You have to know where the enemies are and where they're hiding. You have to know where the guns are, and you have to know, it's a really retcon. The second one is your first attempt to get through it, which you have not retconned enough and will, evidently die in a very embarrassing way in front of an audience watching you, if you're me. And then the second time, maybe you'll get through it, but likely not. And then you'll have to be reset completely, to which you will rage quit, which I have done in front of an audience, which was embarrassing.
Hey, I get it. I think what needs to happen is, this is more directed at Cayman. You need to get better at games, Cayman.
Yo, you're 100% correct. I'm dog shit at video games.
No, I'm just kidding.
I disagree. Because I feel like whatever way you want to play the game is the correct way.
You're right. I agree with that. You're right. For me, with that game specifically, which I guess you could, as I think about what I'm about to say, I could see why this would be a negative, but it didn't bother me. A lot of to your point, Maude, the first life with Deathloop, sometimes that would take me an hour just to go around a map, but I'm figuring out, but I loved it. That. I enjoy that part, but I see, as I think of it and say it, I can see why that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
So
it almost feels like, when I was playing it almost feels like it's designed with speedrunners in mind.
Interesting.
So it's to beat the game or to be proficient at the game, you have to memorize every little. You need to know where the booby traps are. You need to know where enemy placement's going to be in each time frame that you're going to do. And I actually watched a speed run the other day, and the way that they do it, it's so broken. You don't get any story segments at all. It's just so broken. And someone was able to beat it in less than 30 minutes. And it almost feels like that's on your final playthrough, when you're going to kill all of the visionaries at once, that's kind of what they want you to do, is to be able to do it in such a way that you can beat the entire game like that.
I do know with Deathloop, something that is very disappointing about that game. I don't know if either of you follow Steve Saylor, the blind gamer, on Twitter. I remember him going on kind of a you know, Steve. Deathloop is not a very accessible game, which is kind of speaks to what you both were talking about, and that's a shame. Like it sucks that if you need any sort of accessibility with that game, you just kind of can't play it because it's not accessible enough, and that is definitely a failure of that game for sure. But
I will say I'm glad that a lot of end of year game awards that are happening on the likes of IGN and the PlayStation and all that, there is an award for most accessible game. And I'm glad that it's finally getting that kind of recognition. Again, if you are very much like an able-bodied person making games, you don't think outside your perspective. And I think it's like a huge testament to the likes of Steven Spon, Blind Gamer as well, to be like, because Steven, when he games, and he's a dear friend of mine, and I love learning from him, he can't move his hands. So he will game by movements of his head. And so it's like all these sorts of things where I'm here going, I didn't even think about. I conducted an interview and it was written. I was like, it might be easier to have just the questions. And then, of course, he was just like, writing responses out is really difficult for me. Is there another way we could do this? And I was like, holy hell. I thought I was like, doing the more convenient path, but it's not at all. So it's like, we really need to kind of understand that not everyone is built like us. Not everyone has our perspective. And I think that the more we can kind of talk about these things and games can be celebrated for that inclusivity is super important.
I agree. Yeah, a little bit about me that some people in our audience might not know, and Maude, you definitely wouldn't know. I have a form of arthritis. It's a degenerative form of arthritis, so I am technically legally disabled. But I'm lucky in that it doesn't affect my hands, my eyes. Like I can still play games, but there is a place in my heart that is very big for the disabled community since I am disabled, and so. Yeah, I'm just lucky that I'm not disabled with games. So I totally agree. Like that's something that I hope that this trend continues, and games like last year, The Last of Us 2 being like incredibly accessible for all types of gamers, that I hope that we continue in that path.
Yes.
And not in the Deathloop path where it's not very accessible at all.
I will piggyback for just a second off of something you just said. I don't know if you guys follow Brian English. He's the PS4 trophies guy. He's the one who has like the most trophies on PlayStation ever. And so he does like part of what he does is part of his content is he creates guides on how to platinum games. And with his Last of Us Part 2 guide, he actually recommends to play the game on the platinum run, to do it with the accessibilities option, because it highlights items in the field that you don't see. And so he's like, because we have accessibility in the games, like it makes that, if you're doing a platinum run, like it just makes it an easier experience. But he's like, this is actually helpful for a lot of people. He's like, he's like, for me, like I can't see very well. And so a lot of these items on screen, like I can't see at all. And I just walk right past them. Without that, like it's like a miserable experience. And, obviously it's got a work around back to it. But I do agree. I think accessibility in games is absolutely 100% necessary.
Yeah.
And I think that it benefits everyone, not just those.
There is not a negative reason for it.
There's
no detractor at all.
Exactly.
Because if you don't need it, you don't use it. No harm, no foul. Yeah.
Right. Well, with the Game Awards in mind, so Maude, to your point, this year there's not like a one that's probably not going to be in like my top 5 by any means. There's probably not one that's going to be in my top 20 favorite games. But I do think there are some good games in the mix. Do either of you have a guess as to what you think will win Game of the Year?
I'm going to give you a guess, and I'm going to tell you the game I want. How about that?
Okay. How about
my guess? My guess is going to be Deathloop. Just because I feel like it does something we haven't really seen in games so far. Like it's a very interesting concept. I might not love it like a lot of people do, but I can appreciate the game. However, the game I want to win is the game formerly known as It Takes Two.
Well, it's still technically known as it. They just have a lawsuit against them now.
Well, I thought they had to like rescind the name from it from like a lot of.
Did they have to do that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think It Takes Two is by far one of the greatest games I think I've played in the last several years. It is an experience that you have with another person, whether it be online or just sitting on your couch. It is wonderful. It is a way to connect with people. It's a game that is accessible so that people who might not have like the highest accomplishments with games, you don't have to be a Dark Souls player to beat it. It's very easy to get into It Takes Two. And I think that look, it's nominated, which I think is fantastic. But overall, I think it's at the very bottom of every single person's list on if it should win. And it is the very top of mine.
Oh,
Have you
I
played
haven't played it yet, but I want to. No, I really want to. And I have a friend that I stream with. We co-op every Friday, and the problem is we just can't stop playing Stardew Valley together.
Yeah.
But that was a game that was suggested, and I guess I just didn't know enough about it. And I was like, yeah, but the farm. But hearing that, like, I actually really do want to get into it.
I think for streaming too, it works well because the game itself is only about 4.5 to 5 hours long. So it's not long, and it's a budget title. So even at max price, it was only like I think $30. But now it's even marked down to like 10. So
it's on Game Pass.
It's on Game Pass. So it's even more of an accessible option for people who are looking to play with. Like I play with my fiance. We platinumed it together. I want to say it was her first platinum. Like we did it together, and it was just such a wonderful experience to have with someone else. And I think that more people, like, you can have those experiences, whether it's with a parent, with a significant other, with a child. Everyone can play the game, and it's just so much fun.
Yeah,
I'm done now. I'll stop raving about It Takes Two.
I still need to play It Takes Two. Rose and I want to play that game, so we definitely will. I hope Psychonauts 2 wins. Even though Deathloop is probably my favorite game this year, I think Psychonauts 2 is really important in that there aren't a lot of games whose entire narrative is focused on mental health and all the different things that come with mental health. And it tackles it in a really, really creative way. And at the same time, it's just a really great video game. But I think Metroid Dread will win, even though I don't like that game very much personally.
I didn't play it.
It just didn't speak to me. Everyone keeps losing their mind about it though, but it wasn't a Patrick game, I guess.
I haven't played Psychonauts either though. The art style doesn't draw me in.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's not the prettiest game I've ever played. That's for sure.
I love it. I love the art style. I think the reason I like the art style is very similar to like It Takes Two, is because it's so unique. Especially if you have a nice like backlight on your TV, turn all the lights off. Especially like I just got the Pulse 3D headphones for the PlayStation, and I popped those on with the beautiful like neon lights going on. It sounds incredible. I just love all the colors. So I like that. And I think that ages well. Like something like Breath of the Wild or even like Wind Waker. Even today, Wind Waker is still gorgeous. Sure. And I think a game like Psychonauts still looks good. It'll look good, and 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Even today, Cayman, you're gorgeous. I think you're gonna look good 5 or 10 years down the line. How's that? Is that better than just saying you're handsome?
Good.
It did. As you see me like glow,
Yeah,
I'm glowing.
lit
I
up.
think I'm glowing.
We call that reincorporation. Cayman. Cool. Well, yeah, that's the Game Awards. Ma, did you say, is there one that you think might win?
I agree with Cayman in the sense that Deathloop's probably done the most unique things in terms of storytelling, narrative, gameplay. I found it to be a little bit of a frustrating game to play. Sure. I haven't played enough of what is on the list. I finished Outriders, and I think I'm one of the few people that did and actually kind of enjoyed it.
I loved Outriders.
Yeah, I liked Outriders. I didn't finish it.
Such a fun game.
Cayman and I played a good bit of that.
You feel like a superhero playing it.
Yeah.
You feel cool.
I loved the abilities. I really found like I had a really good team. I played with 2 other women, and we just absolutely, slaughtered people. It was fantastic.
Which character type were you?
The trickster.
Yeah, me too.
So I was initially sort of like, what was the artillery one we threw down the turret? I quickly changed out of that one. I did not like that one. Naomi Kyle, who's ex-IGN, I played with her. She was the pyromancer. And then Trisha Hirschberger was the tank who did the punch thing. So I was the trickster, so I could slow down time. There was like, I just loved it. I loved it. And it's like, honestly, playing that game and timing the abilities well and being able to play it like in a group multiplayer experience where you're playing with, like, there's just so few experiences I've had where we've played together as a team, because when you usually play online, people are just very self-centric. But hearing kind of like real-time feedback, like, well done, Maude, or that was awesome. I'm just like, yes. Yeah, it was great. I had a great time doing that.
That's awesome.
No one watched it. Like
Shay.
that game bombed on Twitch. Like I think it had a good week and that was it. But I was just like, ladies,
Yeah.
you got to finish it. And they're like, okay, all right.
It in like recent memory, it is such an odd example of it was huge for like 3 days
Yeah.
and then just completely went away.
Disappeared. Yeah.
Like
Back
it's
to
as
Blood
if
had
it
that a
never
little bit.
existed.
I'm
I feel like
hoping
Back to
with the
Blood
new,
had a good week
yeah.
or two. Yeah.
I'm
But I
hoping
think-
with the new DLC that it has a resurgence, because I think the game is completely underrated and underplayed. And with the new DLC, when a lot of the updates that they've made are all fan focused, like these are complaints that I had day one, they're fixing in the huge
Right.
patch. So I'm hoping that we might see it come back. I don't think it will. Just
I am seeing,
because.
I think with Twitch and with Game Pass, I'm seeing a lot more quick blips of trends.
Mm.
So I played Kenna,
Mhm.
I played that. I had one good session of about 4 hours, and then again it just dropped off and no one
Yeah.
cared after a little bit. Outriders, same sort of thing happened. Back for Blood, same thing happened. So if you don't have something like Game
Yeah.
Pass and you're dropping $60 to play a game for
Yeah.
4 hours once, that is really like terrible investment. But I think because we do have the likes of Game Pass, if it's on there, you get to play it for 4 hours and then uninstall it, and you're not vastly out of pocket. So I think that's really beneficial for streamers that want to spice things up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love Game Pass. But
Except
I
Dragon
had
Age
a similar
Origins didn't work.
unbelievable.
Furious.
BioWare, I know you're watching. Fix it.
Fix
We're approaching the end of our time together. But there are two things that I wanted to talk about real quick. One, this is just because I'm a curious person and I meant to ask it earlier about your career. Do you have, because you've interviewed like basically everyone and their mother in my research. Do you have like one story that you like see, like your favorite interview experience that you've had with somebody?
I feel like the interviewee that I have had that is always 100% a good time, and this is a woman who can come across quite intimidating.
Okay.
But I love her, is Charlize Theron. She is such a bag of fun. She's so sassy. She's kind of like put me in my place in like a fun way. That is just like, if it was like a person that didn't understand that strain of humor, because it's very dry and sarcastic, it could crumple a person in their seat. But for me, I was so excited and I was like, yes, let's tango. And it was just a lot of fun. So she's one of my favorite people to interview. But I've also had bad experiences.
Sure.
I've seen big blow-ups happen. Where it's like, I'm a journalist and you're having this screaming match in front of me. I was like, all right.
Ooh.
I've had good moments. But you're right. I've interviewed way too many people. It's easier to say who I haven't interviewed than who I have.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. I saw this just list of like 19 people that I wrote down. I was like, someone was like, I need to just stop writing them because
Keanu Reeves.
Oh yeah. How was
there
that?
Is the best people in the world. Keanu Reeves is the number one spot, closely followed by Hugh Jackman. They are just a gift to the world. They are so wonderful. I cannot fault them. I
have a huge crush on Hugh Jackman.
He's just so great.
I have had for many reasons. He's an incredible singing voice. He can dance like Fred Astaire. He's handsome as hell.
Yes.
He has the accent.
Genuine, fun.
Yeah. Great
personable.
actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to see Hugh Jackman just once put the full Wolverine costume on. Like I'm tired. Like I feel like that's like the one thing we've lost with Hugh Jackman is I don't think we'll ever be able to get to see.
That was Logan. That was kind of like putting on the suit one last time. That was
for sure. Because those kinds of roles. Speaking from experience as a actor that was a superhero, not true. The physical toll that takes, like it's at a certain point, you just can't do anymore. Like.
Best advice he gave me, because I spoke about that. I was like, you've been doing this role for over 10 years. What's the go? And he goes, as far as sort of like fitness and having the body and the stamina, you just can't not do it. You cannot take time off. You don't work out just for the movie and then go back to normal. Like you adopt and have a new lifestyle because it's so much harder to gain the weight, lose the weight, gain the weight. It's just easier to maintain that physicality. And so that's what he says. Like when you start, you just don't stop. It's just who you are from this point on.
Yeah, I don't.
And then I ate a burger.
Well, eating burgers. Go ahead.
Bruce Campbell, famously Ash from The Evil Dead, just announced that he's actually hanging up the chainsaw and boomstick because of that too. Where he said physically he's at the age now where he just cannot do roles that require him to perform any sort of stunt. Like it's just too physically.
Is he not around Keanu's age? And Keanu's not only doing John Wick 72, but he's also doing...
I think Keanu and Paul Rudd are both like they're just immortal. Like I don't think they've aged a day since. Well, shit. Paul Rudd was in. I think one of his first roles was in Halloween 6.
Really?
Back in the early 90s.
He was in Romeo and Juliet, which came out in 1997.
Let's see. Patrick, start talking. I'm gonna find out.
Okay. I looked up their ages. I'm shocked to see that when you said that they were close in age, I was like, I don't know.
Clueless. Oh my God.
True?
I love Josh. That was 1995.
All right, hold on. Paul Rudd. I've got IMDb up. I'm working as fast as these stubby little fingers of mine can move.
All right. To Maude's point, when you said that they are about the same age, I was like, there's no way. Bruce Campbell's 63, Keanu's 57. They're a lot closer in age than I thought they were.
Ooh.
You are right, Maude.
Great point, Keanu. I mean,
the same year the Clueless came out, Paul Rudd also starred in Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, which was number 6, I believe. So same year.
Not Clueless.
You know who is? This guy. Wrong twice on the show. So
you're only supposed to have it once.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just nervous.
We're gonna talk about that off air, Cayman. Okay, we're about out of time, so I do want to honor our audience who wrote in and talk about the games that we look forward to jumping into over the holidays. So I'm gonna kind of go through the audiences, and then with however much time we have, we can go through what we're excited to play in the holidays, and then we'll sign off and go on with our days. So couple submissions, and by a couple I mean 6. Rose, my wife. Spiritfarer's new update. She's very excited to play, which is something that I need to finish Spiritfarer and then play the update. Skylar, friend of the show, he said he's getting caught up again in The Last of Us. One of the best ever. It's so easy to get drawn back in, which to that I then added one of the things I'm probably going to start playing over the holiday is The Last of Us because you got me wanting to play it again. Ugly.Booster. I think you're beautiful, Ugly Booster. Advanced Wars for Switch. Way Forward is doing the remake, and that's exciting. I've never played Advanced Wars. I'm excited to try that out. Have either of you played Advanced Wars?
No, I have not.
RPG guy.
Yeah, I'm excited to try that out. Nickery John says Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Persona 5, and Tales of Arise. To which I say, you must not be sleeping if those 3 games you're going to be diving into, because those are some biggins.
Persona 5 is not for everyone.
Not a fan of Persona 5, Maude?
I had a friend, when I was doing a powered podcast, a friend recommended Persona 5 from their core. Like the way that they sold it to me, I immediately dropped $60 on it. And I was like, let's tango. And it was just an assault on my senses. And there is like a 5-hour tutorial. And I got to hour 3.
25. It might even be longer than that.
Yeah. And I just was like, I'm sober. This is not fun. I'm very closely going to have almost like a seizure from the amount of like very static lighting that's happening. And this isn't really my humor.
Yeah, I liked Persona 5, but Persona 4 is one of my favorite games.
Is that the one with the dating sim? Because I thought that was Persona 5 and I was very disappointed with the lack of dating options.
Persona 5, they're definitely like the whole thing with Persona. It's like it's a mixture of a dating sim and Pokemon, kind of. But with Persona 5, and those are 2 totally separate pieces of the gameplay. The Pokemon is not who you're dating. But
it could be.
During the day, you're going to high school in Japan,
Yeah.
and you're making friends. You're talking to people. You're going on dates. You're like figuring out who is best girl, best boy, and getting with them. And then at night, you're going into whatever dungeon it is to go fight things and basically collect.
I'll
like,
give it
Pokemon.
another chance, maybe.
But
because I'm into anime now. I'm into
yes, you
anime
are.
again.
Persona 4, you might try that one. Persona 4 Golden. I think it's on PC now, and it's probably not super expensive. Persona 4, in my opinion, I was much more drawn to the story of Persona 4, and it is not as aggressive in your like to your senses. Like it's Persona 5 is very stylish, but Persona 4 is a much more grounded.
It's also about
you might
half
say
the length of Persona 5.
Yeah,
so you're
also
looking at about 60 hours instead of like 120 to 130 from
That's
Persona
what we
5.
need.
And I was more
It costs
drawn to the
$20.
characters of 4. Not bad.
$20. And you know what? The most tantalizing part of it all, I just tried to look it up on Steam. I have to put in my birth date because there is partial nudity.
There is
I
indeed
don't
partial
remember
nudity.
but hey, if you need your birthday,
Maybe there was
it's gonna get
upper
spicy.
thigh. Oh,
Because the I don't know if how far you got in Persona 5, but something that I really love about 4 is when they do, because 5 does it too, but when they do cinematics, like when they're telling like big pieces of story, it goes into like an anime style. It's not
yes.
the gameplay, which I really like that. And
Maude,
but yeah,
if you would like to save your senses, I will say that you can actually watch Persona 4 and Persona 5 as two separate animes. They do have they do have two different TV series for both games and movies for Persona 3, I believe. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting into anime, so this is. I had
It's
a
a good time to
I had a
start.
big go. I grew up on it as a kid, and then I tried to get into it when COVID first hit, and I tried Sword Art Online, and the first half of the first season was great, and then it went real weird, and I kind of just stopped. But then I moved into what's the Japanese animation studio?
Studio
Ghibli.
Ghibli. I got into Ghibli, or Ghibli, as they say, soft G. The GH. But so I got into that, and I was like, I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah.
And then My Hero Academia, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
Yeah,
I can't stop talking about it. I love it. I love it.
Hey, we have like 6 more minutes with you if you want to talk about My Hero Academia right now.
Okay, so it's like, I've seen all 5 seasons in 2 weeks, and now I went to the cinema and I caught the final movie that's just been out, and I have to wait for more. And it's like they're in 3 years of high school. We haven't even graduated the first year of high school. There's so much, and it's been 5 years. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. The problem
is slow moving.
Problem is, they're all 16 still, and I have to be reminded of that often.
Hey, you can, you're watching a show. You can pretend you're 16 too.
Well, this went down.
I did not look like that at 16. That these women look like at 16.
I don't look like that at 31. So
no, that's the thing. Like they're training to be superheroes, so I understand that their physique is adept to that of. Gosh, guys, it's bad. Anyway, moving on.
Okay, we'll move on. We have a couple more audience submissions for what they're excited to play. We have Matt, who's going to be playing Pokemon Shining Pearl. Hello, Matt. Gregaman X, Resident Evil 4 VR, a fresh new way to experience Resident Evil 4 has me crazy excited. To which I say, Greg,
you're a madman.
Have a nap instead.
I got PSVR and Rose and I played Resident Evil 7 together for about an hour, and then we both shit our pants and didn't play VR for about 3 months because it was just way too.
Look at each other if you both shat yourselves next to each other.
It was very romantic. Actually.
It was a bonding experience.
Resident Evil in VR.
No, thank you.
Not for me, but Greg, I'm sure you're gonna love it because sounds like you like to torture yourself.
Yeah.
Maude, what are you going to be getting into over the holidays?
Because Dragon Age Origins didn't work, I have fired up Mass Effect Legendary Edition again. I started it half a year ago, and it's so great to get back into Mass Effect because it's such a great series. So I played some this week already and got rid of Ashley. She's xenophobic, real bad.
You made the right decision.
She's racist. So got rid of her, and I didn't cry over it. It's like, make the decision. Who are you going to save? not Ashley.
Yeah, and
Feels
people
good.
are like, oh, but she gets less racist in 3. I'm like, she gets less racist, not racist.
And that
Get
might
rid
be
of
a
her.
leap to say she gets less racist.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't. I think you need to talk to your priest about that, sir, because don't think that that's true. About her getting less racist.
It's representative. Like if you're in basically like a soldier in a galactic empire, so to speak, like someone's going to be a little foul. And so I think that it's, if everyone's constantly perfect all the time, is it an accurate representation?
Sure.
What's really cool is that you can send them on a mission that does kill them.
Love that.
Yeah.
Making choices make sense and matter. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be getting into Yakuza Like a Dragon over the holidays.
Oh, you got a lot of Yakuza to get through.
Cayman's been trying to get me to play this game for about 6 years, and it's only been out for a year and a half. So this is I definitely want to play that.
Like a
what
Dragon,
about you, Cayman?
Greatest game, one of the greatest games ever made. I have to say that. Everyone should play it. For me, I'm gonna finish up Deathloop. Probably jump into RE Village myself because I need to play it. And then I'm thinking I might play a little Death's Door. It's now out on PlayStation, so I thought I might pop myself in and see what I can do with that. But yeah, nothing too crazy this year.
I think you'll like Death's Door if you can get over the difficulty of it, because it's a tough game, which I know
I
you
like
don't
that.
I'm terrible at video games. So
you play as a bird though. You're like a cute little black bird in it, so it might be hard, but at least you get to be a bird. I'm
because I stream video games. I play on easy. I've really struggled with trying to entertain an audience, be really kind of cognizant of chat and the discussion, and also get through hard stages in a video game. I have an emote at this stage, which is kind of like making fun of me, because when it's a strategy game like that, especially like your Command and Conquers and Age of Empires, both which I've played, I get in the zone. Because it's like Outriders, I did it a lot as well. When the game's happening, I start, got a little bit of a slack face and like I'm in the zone. And so if I glance over at chat, it's just a wall of like, well, we lost her. She's gone. In the zone. And I'll come to like 40 minutes later, like, oh gosh, what?
That's amazing.
It's a hard thing to balance.
Yeah, I've never streamed a game, so whenever that happens, if that happens, I'm sure it is quite the learning curve that I'm excited to challenge myself with. But Maude, we're at time now, so before we let you go, before you plug all the things you want to plug, and I want you to plug all the Geek Bomb, Patreon, all that stuff. I want to say thank you again for joining us.
Of course.
I know you're a very busy woman, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell the folks at home how they can follow you, where they can watch your stuff, how they can subscribe, all that stuff.
Oh, fantastic. I'm Maude Garrett on pretty much all social media, GARRETT. But I also have Geek Bomb, which is on all social media, but it's where I stream and it's where I put videos up on YouTube. So same sort of thing. If you give it a follow, give it a like, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't take anything out of your bank or your day. But I'm doing a lot of stuff on there, which will be really cool. And I have a Patreon because Geek Bomb's a fan-funded company. We are a fan-funded country.
You're the prime minister of Geek Bomb.
Feels like that sometimes. But in it, we do a book club twice a month. We do the after show for Nerdists Book Club. We have a only Patreon-backed show with Trisha Hirschberger where no topic is off topic. What is it? No
off
topic
limits.
is off limits. Yes. So we talk about all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff. Patreon.com/geekbomb if you want to check that one out. We have a really interactive community, Pat, as you know.
As I know.
You're in the Discord.
And you have a goal that we're trying to hit. We can plug that here.
Yeah, except we had an end of goal for November, which was to get 200 backers, which we did. But then what happens on the 1st or 2nd of December, payments get declined because sometimes Patreon will tell the bank, oh, this is a suspicious purchase. And so it'll shut it down. So we actually went from 200 back to 182.
Oh, man.
So now we've got to get the whole thing again. And it's just like...
just pushing the boulder up the hill.
Yeah. You too can be a business owner and experience this sort of turmoil regularly.
Well, if you have a bank that trusts your suspicious purchases, go be a patron at Geek Bomb. They do great stuff, as I have come to learn in the last month or so. And pay them a little bit of money, and then just come over here to Spotlight Games. Go to our YouTube, help us hit our goal of 100 subs, and rate the podcast, review the podcast, follow us on Instagram, Spotlight Games Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Spot Games Pod, or if you want to be on the show, mail at spotlightgames.net. Folks, that's our show. Again, Maude, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maude, for
We are
coming
forever
on
in
the
your
show
debt.
as well. Yes, this was an incredible experience, and maybe one day we too will have a Wikipedia page of our own.
We'll see.
Do it. There's nothing stopping you.
Well, until we meet again,
fair.
I bid you adieu.
Love
Goodbye.
You guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.